Okay, now we're diving into the more strategical and more tactical aspect of the passive game. The first thing we'll be talking about is try to avoid playing diagonal all the time. Switch a little bit more, change directions, because it's quite a reflex of, let's say, basically everybody, that if you're behind and if you're under pressure, that the first thing you'll do is you'll play this ball diagonal. And try to avoid this as much as you can. I mean, you can do it, of course, but don't do it blindly. And also, changing directions, it's the same. Don't do it blindly. Just try to find out where your opponent is not playing so well from and try to press him on that side of the table. Key point 7 is know when to go over. Also, again, it's not such a bad thing to stay in this position for a couple of balls, at least until you find the right ball to try to be more aggressive again. It's quite bad that if you want to leave your passive position, that just from the first ball on, you're trying to counterattack and doing this, I mean, with your eyes shut, it's just way too risky. So it's not so bad to just keep a couple of balls on the table, stay quite passive, and wait until it's your time to go over. And this will give you much better results than just trying to counterattack on everything from the very start. Next is know when to slow down. So it's the opposite of last key point, where you have to know when to accelerate. Now it's knowing when to slow down. Why am I saying this? Well, because a lot of people, once they're in the second position, they neglect this movement from front to back. And if you lure them, and by getting them closer to the table, oftentimes they will just touch the ball very low. They won't move back forwards. Let's be honest, I'm also not somebody who practices this a lot, this front to back movement or back to front, whatever you want to call it. And just people, if you play the same rhythm all the time, then, well, they'll just stay in the same position. So if accelerating is not the solution, maybe slowing down is. Okay, the last key point, guys, is don't forget the middle. The middle, if you're being in a passive position, is something which just leaves you with plenty of opportunities. Especially if somebody's playing topspin, so let's say your opponent is playing topspin, and you play them in the corner, could be backhand, could be forehand, and then after this ball, you move them to their middle. Well, the tendency that a lot of people have is, because, let's say just for me, I'm a left-hander, if the ball comes to my middle, then I wouldn't play to that side of the table, because this entire part would be open. They can play the ball quite sharp from this side. Well, so subconsciously, I would more play to that side of the table, because again, that would leave the table, or, I mean, the opportunities for my opponent to play, it would leave them to, let's say, something about here. So if I play to that side of the table, well, then I can close my table, I can shorten my table, or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter for me. So basically this just means that you don't have to move as much. But if you are the passive player in this situation, and you are aware that many people have this tendency of going to that side of the table because they want to close down their forehand, they don't want to move too much, well, then you can anticipate this. And let's say if I'm playing a right-hander, I'm standing here, I'm moving them there to their forehand or to their backhand, doesn't really matter. And then afterwards, I'm going to the middle. And I'm expecting this ball to come here. Again, with the same logic as I just explained. Well, then this is the moment for me to go over the ball. This is the time where you have to accelerate. This is the time for opportunity. And you can do this depending on who you're playing. You can go to the forehand, or you can go down the line, let's say. You can go to you can go cross. It doesn't really matter. As I said, just look for yourself what match you're playing, who you're playing against. But again, this middle, it really is something you should capitalize on. It's very important. And let's say if I'm playing against somebody who's playing with the same hand as me, so for me it would be a left-handed player, then their forehand would be there, backhand would be there. All of a sudden, I'm going to their middle, then they would be playing here to my backhand. So it would just be the same situation, but it would be mirrored. Most of the times, if you're moving them from side to side and all of a sudden you're going to the middle, well, they will go to your backhand. So again, this leaves you with plenty of opportunities to go over the ball, to accelerate, but this time with your backhand. Okay, so that was the video on passive game. Thank you very much for watching again. So this time I basically took a closer look at the most mainstream, the most basic ideas, most basic techniques on this. There are some other ways to keep it varied. I mean, a lot of players are coming up, Lebrun, Moregard, who are just not inventing really, but they're just being very creative with their passive game. And again, I shouldn't stop you from trying out things yourself. I just gave you some ideas which I think are quite effective, which I think are quite effective not just in practice, but in matches, and are quite universal. They can work on a lot of different people. So again, thank you very much for watching. I was Olaf Kozolowski from TT Technalytics, and hopefully I'll see you next time.